Alrighty, all g'day on. We're taking a look at some big things happening down under. What are some of Australia's massive infrastructure projects? I wouldn't have the slightest idea. Hopefully we will find out about some of them and see, I'm going to assume all of these are realistic or happening. Maybe some of them are kind of out there, big time dreams that could or could not happen. I'm not really sure, but I was recommended this video by Byron. So thank you so much for that. From a channel called Talking Tactics. This will be linked in the description down below so you can watch this whole video uninterrupted, as we won't be watching quite the whole thing here. And of course, browse their channel. Let's go ahead and get started.
Inland
right
rail,
into it.
Estimated cost $9.3 billion. Our first project takes us on a journey from
9.3 billion
all the way to Brisbane on the Inland Rail. This
Melbourne all the way to Brisbane. Yeah, that's pretty far. Remember, Australia is really big.
colossal undertaking is a 1,600 kilometre freight rail network that will connect the east coast of Australia via regional Victoria, New South Wales and Queensland. Its stated goal is to help us keep pace with the increasing freight demands of Australia's growing population. The track will enable the use of
This will be 1,800 kilometers long of 21-ton axle load and will travel up to 115 kilometers per hour. It will carry the equivalent of 108 B doubles worth of freight. That's a pretty big deal. For me, it's weird because I still think of Australia as, mind-blowingly smaller than I always thought, population-wise, right? I know it's a huge country, almost, identical to the size of the lower 48 here in the U.S., but of course, the population difference is stark, right? We're talking 330-something million people here in the U.S. and then around, 27 million or so in Australia. I think that's crazy just because I always would have assumed it was more. But of course, for years now, learning that it was around 26, 27 million people, that's still, a good amount of people, especially when you have some really big metro areas. And I will say that I have seen, posts before, perusing the internet, on YouTube, on Reddit, wherever, that, don't let that number fool you. A lot of places are really experiencing booms and kind of growth in Australia, right? I mean, there's always immigration happening. There's always people, having children and the whole nine yards, right? Population is generally going to still go up. And I feel like people are feeling that to some degree in certain areas of Australia. So I imagine definitely talks and maybe even a need for some big infrastructure upgrades. I've heard places in Australia like Melbourne and Sydney can honestly feel really crowded at times and seem like regardless of the country's population, when you're in that area, place is booming. It's crowded, right?
Stacked 1,800 metre long trains at a maximum speed of 115 kilometres per hour, allowing for the transit of massive freight volumes. Each train could carry the equivalent freight volume of 110 B-double trucks.
Yeah, that's pretty amazing.
It aims to improve national freight and supply chain capabilities by connecting existing routes through rail, road and ports. It will have the added benefit of reducing road congestion, enhancing safety and decreasing carbon emissions with 200,000 fewer trucks on our roads every year once it's complete. Inland rail is estimated to be operational in 2027.
Wow, that's not too far away, only about 3 years. Do you think that's realistic? Maybe it's a bit ambitious. I'm not really sure. But, on a just simple basis, do you feel like Australia is growing more right now than it really ever has, or was there bigger booms at different time periods and this isn't that bad? I would love to hear what you guys think. I definitely think for my case here in the U.S., of course I'm only 31. It's not like I've been alive for 200 years or something, but I feel like, the U.S. is somehow really growing a lot right now. Without like looking up the facts, I feel like it's growing still, if that makes sense.
Sydney Airport. Estimated cost $5.3 billion. The
Okay.
Western Sydney Airport project is a significant infrastructure initiative aimed at addressing the increasing demand for air travel and fostering economic growth in the greater Sydney region. With an
Ooh, look at that. Western Sydney Airport. Okay, I imagine there's at least a couple airports in Sydney already, right? Is this like an upgrade or a totally new one? Let me look up that. How many airports are in Sydney? 3. They have Sydney Airport, Rose Bay, Seaplane Base, and Sydney Bankstown Airport. Okay, so this Western Sydney would be new then, right? This one said there's 2 main airports and a 3rd military base airport. I'm going to assume the one he's mentioning must be new.
Estimated cost of $5.3 billion. The new airport project will be a modern facility with a focus on sustainability and innovation, and built to accommodate 10 million passengers from day one.
Wow.
It will accommodate both domestic and international flights, increasing the airspace capacity for Sydney, which will mean more passengers and freight services and less congestion. Western Sydney International Airport is set to begin services in late 2026. Melbourne Metro.
I feel like that one makes total sense, right? I mean, Sydney is a huge city, huge metro area. Now, I understand Australia is pretty far away from a lot of places, so it's not like, it's one of the, top 5 busiest airports on Earth. I definitely doubt that. But, I'm sure it's got a lot of domestic flights going on at any given day. And, of course, still, quite a bit of international travel as well. And it's just, like I said, a super famous, super busy metro area. So I guess that one I feel like makes sense, right? That they would need another big wig airport somewhere in the area.
Tunnel. Estimated cost, $11 billion.
Metro tunnel, that sounds interesting.
The Metro tunnel will create a new end-to-end rail line from Sunbury in the west to Cranbourne, Pakenham in the southeast, with bigger and more modern trains and 5 new stations. It will feature twin...
Whoa. Is that what they're going to look like? Yeah. Oh my God, those look incredible, man. Look at that. I mean, I've seen pictures of some of the train stations recently, like a month or 2 ago, on some Australian posts, and they looked beautiful. Like, literally, people in the comments were saying, like, they were some of the coolest in the world. So I believe, like, they could look really, really good. Australia does, like, a bang-up job on some... a lot of infrastructure things, I feel like. It's kind of cool, dude.
9-kilometre rail tunnels from Kensington to South Yarra, and 5 new underground stations at Arden, Parkville, State Library, Town Hall and Anzac. It will also enhance connectivity from the existing transport network by including pedestrian links to significant stations such as Flinders Street and Melbourne Central, plus the city's first train-tram interchange at Anzac Station on St Kilda Road. The project is a significant undertaking with an estimated cost of $11 billion and is aimed at transforming Melbourne's public transport system, alleviating congestion on the roads and improving the efficiency of the rail network. It's expected to open in 2025.
So, yeah, you'll have to tell me your opinion on some of these, especially like that one sounds like it could be pretty cool. Now, of course, I can't really weigh in on it, how much this is needed, how cool this would be, how useful it would be. I'm going to rely on some of you to weigh in on that as well. I feel like, of course, on paper, a lot of things look great on paper. I feel like on paper, this is pretty cool. Now, I've always heard and read that Melbourne is, pretty much the most international city in Australia, right? You could argue maybe it's like more European than a lot of the other cities, for lack of a better description, right? So I feel like there's probably a decent amount of people in Melbourne. Again, huge metro area. I feel like there's a good amount of people that probably take public transport to a certain degree, right? I feel like Australia is a little more like the US, where a lot of people are very, car-centric, a lot of cars going on, and a lot of people maybe not taking the bus every day and not taking trains every day. We all hear about how Europe is not near as car-centric as the US, right? Nowhere near, actually. But then again, I feel like depending on where you're at, if you're in truly downtown Chicago or downtown New York City here in the US, you're not owning a car, right? You're taking public transport all the time, just like Europe. So I feel like there's, of course, people like that in Australia as well. And I feel like a lot of those people would be in Melbourne. So you can correct me if I'm wrong. But yeah, this might be pretty cool.
Of the rail network. It's expected to open in 2025.
Wow, that's like happening right around the corner. Metronet.
$10 billion. Metronet is a significant public transportation initiative in Perth, Western Australia. The project includes approximately 72 kilometres.
Wow, look at that. That looks like a pretty big area. Then again, I feel like the Perth metro area is kind of big, right? It almost has to be, because you're like the only civilization in any direction for like an eternity.
of new passenger rail lines and 23 new stations, and will turn more than 8,000 hectares of land around those new stations into desirable places to live, work and play.
Wow.
Major works on the project include the Byford Rail Extension, the Forestfield Airport Link, the Morley-Ellenbrook Line, 246 locally manufactured C-Series rail cars, plus a manufacturing facility for those.
Damn.
The recent Western Australian budget saw the total cost of Metronet at $10.5 billion. The project places emphasis on creating sustainable and vibrant communities around the new rail stations and aims to stimulate economic growth, enhance accessibility, and improve the overall livability in Perth.
Wow, that one seems really ambitious. Did I miss when that was supposed to be happening? Yeah, I don't know if he said, I might have missed it. I apologize if he said when this was going to happen. But, dude, every time I hear this kind of detailed info about Perth, I always kind of think in my head, is Perth underrated? Is it secretly awesome? Dare I say, it would be really cool. Sometimes I sit and think, and I'm like, man, I feel like it'd be really cool to move there.
Snowy Hydro 2.0. Estimated cost, $10 billion.
Snowy Hydro?
Snowy
What on
Hydro
earth?
2.0 is an expansion of the Snowy Mountains hydroelectric scheme, which has already been providing energy to Australia for over 70 years.
That's awesome.
Snowy 2.0 projects will link two existing dams through a 27-kilometre underground tunnel and power station in order to better generate and then store energy. When electricity is in demand, water will flow down freely from the higher altitude reservoir, Tantangara Dam, down through the tunnel, turning the turbines and generating electricity for the public. That
Makes
water
sense.
ends up in the lower altitude reservoir, Talbingo Dam.
Look at how beautiful that area is.
Then when
Wow.
electricity is in surplus, lower in demand, and therefore cheaper, the water will be pumped back up to the higher altitude dam, storing all that energy within the water until it is needed. It will also maximise the efficiency of renewables such as solar and wind energy by using it to pump the water back up into the upper storage reservoir. But the project involves complex engineering and tunnelling works to connect the two.
That stuff blows my mind. I always say like mega projects and like especially like tunneling, going through mountains and stuff, pipelines, like all this stuff. It literally blows my mind. Like I can't wrap my head around how human beings even do this stuff, right? I'm just some random citizen that doesn't know anything about this stuff. I just can't wrap my freaking brain around it. It's hilarious. It's really cool that this kind of stuff can even happen.
Project involves
It's
complex
wild to me.
engineering and tunneling works to connect the two reservoirs and create the necessary infrastructure for the pumped hydro storage system. And this has seen the budget blow out from an estimated $5.9 billion in 2017 to about $12 billion. It aims to be completed by the end of 2028. Westgate.
It might even get more expensive. Let's get real. If they have like, what, 4 years left?
Metro. Estimated cost, $20 billion.
20 billion. Is this the highest one on this list?
The Sydney Metro is Australia's biggest transport project. Expanding the already existing Metro North West Line, the construction project includes City and South West Line, the West Line, and the Western Sydney Airport Line. The City and South West Line will be a 30-kilometre extension from the end of the North West Line at Chatswood under the Sydney Harbour through the new CBD stations and southwest to Bankstown, and it's due to open in 2020.
Whoa, look at that. That's a lot going
The
on.
West Line involved a 24-kilometre line doubling the rail capacity between Greater Parramatta and the CBD, which will link new communities to rail services and aims to support employment growth and housing supply. And the Western Sydney Airport line will service the previously mentioned new Western Sydney International Airport and aims to commence services at the same time as passenger airline services start. This massive project, once complete, will see Sydney Metro having built and then operating a network of 46 stations, 4 metro and 133 kilometres of new rail.
Wow, and that's all Sydney.
Metro lines.
That's just Sydney.
33 kilometres.
My God, Sydney's huge. I mean, you literally have CBD way down here, right? You have all the water. You have all this coastline. Dude, Sydney is really stacked, man. It's wild. I feel like Sydney has everything. You have a huge city. You have a skyline. You have landmarks galore, right? You have cafes, restaurants, just tons of stuff to do, right? And then you have all of these massive metro area. So you have natural areas, right? You know, you have sports, you have suburbs. I mean, this is still considered basically Sydney, Western Sydney. I mean, way out here. I wonder if this Western Sydney airport, that's got to be the one he mentioned earlier, right? I mean, look at how far away that is. Now, it totally makes sense why you would need some stuff out here as well. But I'm always mind blown by big cities and like a big metros, right? This is something I'm still mind blown about Chicago, which is, of course, you know, in the general area where I am. You have Chicagoland is just absolutely huge when you look at it on the map. And you have things literally going into, you know, out west from Chicago and out north from Chicago. You know, if you go to this northwest, right, you have things literally an hour and 10-minute car ride away that are still considered Chicago area. And you're an hour and 10 minutes outside of the city by car doing like highway speeds. Like, that's how big Chicago is considered. It's just a, that's why they call it Chicagoland. Like, it's a humongous metro. And I feel like that's how Sydney is. Like, Sydney is just huge. I feel like Melbourne is pretty big as well.
Of new rail. It will have
it's crazy
capacity of 40,000 customers per hour. A huge increase.
Wow.
24,000 people an hour. It will revolutionise how Australia's biggest city travels with fast, reliable, turn up and go services with fully accessible stations.
Well, now that makes me wonder, do more people embrace public transport, and is it better in Sydney or is it better in Melbourne? I'll let you guys duke it out for that.
So there you have it. Some of Australia's massive infrastructure.
That's pretty cool. Look, we did skip a couple of those as well. So if you want to, see this whole thing, see all those uninterrupted, of course, the ones we missed here as well, use that link down there and definitely check that video out and check them out as well. I'm a nerd. I'm into this type of thing. I would love to hear your thoughts on some of this as well. I think a lot of these are, ambitious, and I think they're very interesting. Of course, they cost a lot of money. That's how mega projects kind of work, or just kind of any infrastructure project, to be honest, of some sort of decent size. But yeah, that's pretty much going to do it for this one. So I really do appreciate you watching, and I hope you had a great weekend as well. I think when you're watching this is probably Monday. Yeah, I hope I see you in the next one too. My name is Ian. You're watching IWrocker, and until next time, y'all, I'll catch you later.